Michael Harrington. In early 2018, former NYPD Deputy Chief Michael Harrington admitted he diverted department resources, officers, vehicles, boats, and even a helicopter, to private individuals in exchange for cash, gifts, and social favors. Over several years, he used his rank to provide police escorts for well-connected businessmen, offer counterterrorism details at synagogues, and grant access to restricted units, all outside official channels. Harrington's scheme came to light in 2016 when the FBI unearthed records of unauthorized deployments tied to a politically connected donor. Confronted with emails and dispatch logs, he pleaded guilty in March 2018 to misapplication of property and conversion of police resources. Under his plea deal, bribery charges were dropped, and he received a sentence of probation and community service rather than prison time. The Cops for Hire scandal prompted the NYPD to tighten controls on resource allocation. Every deployment now requires documented supervisory approval. A centralized auditing unit reviews all extraordinary duty assignments, and an inspector general's office gained direct subpoena power over department records. Harrington's fall underscored the need for ironclad transparency whenever officers wield extraordinary authority. Tim Vasquez. In August 2022, former San Angelo Police Chief Tim Vasquez was convicted of accepting thousands of dollars in cash and gifts from drug traffickers in exchange for warning them of planned raids, obstructing investigations, and providing official cover for narcotics shipments. He was sentenced to 186 months in federal prison in November 2022, fined $50,000, and ordered to forfeit assets tied to the scheme. The scandal led the San Angelo Police Department and Texas legislature to tighten controls on officer conflicts of interest, mandate regular audits of investigative case files, and establish an independent review board for allegations of misconduct. Measures aimed at restoring public trust and preventing abuse of authority. Vincent Forrest. In January 2024, former Metropolitan Police Department officer Vincent Forrest was convicted of conspiracy, bribery, and making false statements after admitting he sold confidential crash report data to private investigators and runners in exchange for cash payments. Over a 2-year scheme, Forrest accessed non-public information from traffic accident reports, victims' names, contact details, and injury descriptions, and leaked it for referral fees. Federal investigators used wiretap evidence and subpoenaed dispatch logs to trace payments from intermediaries back to Forrest. In September 2023, a D.C. federal jury found him guilty. In May 2024, he was sentenced to 20 months in prison and ordered to forfeit $15,000. The case prompted the MPD to lock down access to crash databases, mandate quarterly audits of report downloads, and require officers to justify any external requests for sensitive data. Safeguards designed to protect victim privacy and uphold the integrity of law enforcement records. Wayne Pfeiffer. In May 2024, former Village of Brewster police officer Wayne Pfeiffer was sentenced to 36 months in federal prison for conspiring to commit Hobbs Act extortion and bribery. Over roughly 8 years, 1910 to 1918, Pfeiffer accepted free sexual services from 2 Queens-based prostitution businesses in exchange for warning them of law enforcement activity, intervening to prevent arrests, and vouching for their drivers when stopped in his jurisdiction. Pfeiffer's scheme unraveled after investigators uncovered wiretaps and surveillance, showing him arranging rendezvous in parking garages and receiving envelopes of cash equivalent sexual favors. He pleaded guilty in April 2022, and at sentencing was also ordered to forfeit $5,000 and perform 208 hours of community service under supervised release. The scandal prompted the Brewster Police Department to install continuous body camera recording, empower its internal affairs unit with greater investigative authority, and establish independent civilian oversight for complaints, measures aimed at preventing future abuses of power and restoring public confidence. Sean Williams. In April 2023, authorities in Tennessee arrested Sean Williams, a well-known local businessman, after seizing thousands of images of child sexual abuse and uncovering evidence he had been drugging and raping dozens of women over nearly 2 decades. At trial in late 2024, Williams was convicted on multiple counts of producing child pornography and of escaping federal custody. In February 2025, he was sentenced to 95 years in federal prison, effectively ensuring he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. The revelations of how Williams evaded detection for so long, and the subsequent $28 million class action settlement against the city, for its mishandling of victims' reports, forced Johnson City to overhaul its sexual assault response protocols, strengthen oversight of investigations, and bolster protections for whistleblowers. Craig Clayton. In February 2023, financial consultant Craig Clayton was arrested for orchestrating a sophisticated money laundering operation that funneled over $35 million in internet fraud proceeds through a web of shell company accounts he managed as a virtual CFO. In May 2025, Clayton pleaded guilty to money laundering conspiracy and obstruction of justice, and now faces decades behind bars, when he's sentenced later this year. The case spurred Rhode Island and Massachusetts to tighten banking oversight, strengthen regulations on shell corporations, and expand anti-fraud enforcement, underscoring the need for vigilant financial controls to protect both businesses and consumers. Gary Cederquist. In May 2025, former Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Gary Cederquist was convicted on dozens of counts, including conspiracy to commit extortion, honest services fraud, and falsification of records, for accepting bribes to falsely pass unqualified commercial driver's license applicants. Over a 4-year scheme, he used department resources and code words like golden to grant passing scores to at least 40 drivers who never took or failed the required skills tests. Facing up to 20 years per count, Cederquist awaits sentencing in July 2025. His case has driven the state to tighten oversight of its licensing units, bolster ethics training for troopers, and implement early warning systems for officer misconduct, underscoring how vital integrity and accountability are in keeping public trust and safety intact. Scott Jenkins. In December 2024, Culpeper County Sheriff Scott Jenkins was found guilty of conspiracy, honest services fraud, and 7 counts of bribery, after accepting over $75,000 in cash and campaign contributions in exchange for swearing in unqualified deputies and granting them law enforcement powers. Sentenced in March 2025 to 10 years in federal prison, Jenkins avoided incarceration when he received a full and unconditional pardon in May 2025, sparking controversy over the use of executive clemency for public safety officials. The scandal prompted Virginia lawmakers and sheriff's associations to tighten oversight of auxiliary appointments, strengthen ethics training, and implement early warning systems for officer misconduct, underscoring the need for rigorous accountability whenever public trust is betrayed. Joseph Jerome Medianowski. In the late 1990s, Chicago was rocked by revelations that a respected police sergeant, Joseph J. Medianowski, had been moonlighting as a violent criminal over more than a decade on the force. He used his badge to organize armed robberies of drug dealers, shake down fellow officers, and traffic in narcotics, all while cultivating a reputation as a fearless street cop. His scheme unraveled in 1999, when a federal and internal affairs sting netted Medianowski and several accomplices. In 2000, he was convicted on racketeering and conspiracy charges and sentenced to 28 years in federal prison. The trial exposed how he weaponized department resources, police radios, unmarked cars, even fellow officers, to plan and execute his crimes. The road cop scandal prompted Chicago to overhaul its oversight of sworn personnel. The Independent Police Review Authority was empowered with broader investigative powers. Early warning systems for officer misconduct were strengthened, and federal monitors were brought in to ensure transparency. Medianowski's fall from grace remains a stark warning of how unchecked power can corrupt, and the critical need for rigorous accountability in law enforcement. Louis Eppolito. In the mid-1990s, longtime NYPD detectives Louis Eppolito and Stephen Caracappa, known as the Mafia Cops, betrayed their badge by moonlighting as hitmen for the Lucchese crime family. While ostensibly investigating mob activity, they funneled confidential police intelligence to mob bosses and carried out murders on their behalf in exchange for cash payments and promises of future rewards. Their scheme unraveled in 2005 when federal wiretaps captured Eppolito coordinating a contract to kill a former Lucchese associate, and prosecutors connected them to at least 8 mob-ordered murders dating back to 1986. In September 2006, both men were convicted in federal court on charges of racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and murder for hire. They received life sentences without the possibility of parole. The Mafia Cops scandal prompted the NYPD to tighten controls on detective assignments and interagency intelligence sharing, All officers now undergo regular financial disclosure audits, and any off-duty employment involving personal security or investigative work must be pre-approved by Internal Affairs. Safeguards designed to prevent any future collusion between officers and organized crime.